and plans in place to improve Butler for all modes. So we expect to see this this data change over time once that infrastructure is built. So similar to the high injury network, we identified our high crash intersections. So these are statistically higher frequency or severity of traffic crashes compared to others in the region. So while we have 6 listed here, the top 2 that rank the highest, and the rank is simply based on the number of crashes that happen at that intersection. So number 1 is Milton Riordan, and then number 2, Woodlands Village and University. The following 4, they all essentially had the same amount of crashes happen at them, but were notable compared to other intersections in our community. And lastly, in terms of data analysis, we evaluated crashes within these 4 areas to determine whether there are any disproportional impacts around our schools, around organizations that provide social services, our community assets, and equity areas. And overall, in our findings, there was no disproportional effects in these specific locations and with these communities. But this information is still of value as it provides location-based information when investing in infrastructure, and it also informs our Safe Routes to School program and our transportation demand management program as well.
The fatalities, does that include any type of accident involving trains?
It does not. ADOT doesn't necessarily capture that as a rail related incident in their forms. That information is actually included in the document itself, but it's a summation of ADOT's recent work for the statewide pedestrian rail crossing study. So we have all those stats in there. No problem. Okay, moving on to our next chapter here, public outreach. So we really wanted to focus in these 4 areas listed at the bottom here. We wanted to take time to engage vulnerable communities. And that includes our seniors, our students, folks with mobility challenges, and certainly the folks that really rely on transportation that isn't a vehicle. We wanted to facilitate inclusive input from these variety groups. And really, it was a good opportunity for us to gather insights on people's real life experiences and what they've either been part of or witnessed on our roadways. And it also gave us, lastly, a chance to work on some education. So not only demonstrating the stats that we're seeing in our community, but also to encourage behavior change and such. So this project is a little different in terms of its public outreach because it came at the VRU started at the end of the Regional Transportation Safety Action Plan. And that really provided us that kind of baseline for what the community's concerns and needs and opportunities for improvements were. And so this is just an example of the information that came out of one of the types of information that came out of the Regional Transportation Safety Plan. This online mapping, we asked the community to pinpoint where there were concerns, let us know what that concern was and what that concern mode or what the concern related to which mode. So we had a lot of this existing data, and so we didn't want to go out with another survey and ask similar questions, which people had already asked. And this allowed us to actually spend our efforts reaching out to those people that we don't typically hear from, and going to those community groups and social services that often get overlooked in these processes. So to stay engaged in the larger community, we attended community events, which included activities that not only sought feedback, but also allowed for us to generally talk about transportation safety with the community. This also allowed us to do more targeted outreach. And so the 5 MetroPlan events, those are really targeted. We focused our effort in those areas to, once again, reach folks that we don't often hear from. And of course, we presented at several public meetings. Many of these more than once. So at least we were able to tap into other audiences as well. Once again, not going to get into big detail here, but these findings really mirror what we heard in the Regional Transportation Safety Plan, in Stride Forward, in the Active Transportation Master Plan. So I don't think that there's any new surprises up here for anyone. But really what comes to the top for folks is wanting safe crossings, wanting improved sidewalks, bus stop amenities, and we actually had a lot of conversation about behaviors, and people really just want that mutual respect for each other on our roads and streets. So we had the data, we had the public comment. This helped us to create our Vision Zero commitment. So in April, the board set a Vision Zero resolution with the goal to reduce serious and fatal crashes by 40% by 2045. And we move forward with a percentage reduction because MetroPlan does not have the authority over our regional roadways. However, our efforts are complementary to the city and the state whom have adopted Vision Zero and safety goals. All right, so we did step one. That's bringing the first part together. Now we get into step two, which gets to really what I like fun stuff because it gets us towards our implementation strategies. So taking that public outreach and the data informed our commitment. Now that commitment is informing our policies and strategies to move forward. So we identified 5 action areas to focus our effort on, and those are listed on your left. Those were really the top topics that came out from our discussions with our stakeholders, our partners, and the community. This led to the development of 10 policies which apply both Vision Zero and FHWA safe system approach across all planning, programming, and policy decisions moving forward. So these 10 policies then led to 30 strategies. And it is our intent to implement these strategies over a 5-year period. So year one, we have 13 strategies, and you'll see that they begin to continue to reduce over time because we anticipate that many of those first year and potentially second year strategies will eventually become conducted annually. So we can begin or start and maintain tracking our progress towards reaching our Vision Zero goals. Once again, these strategies really focus on what MetroPlan can implement. So we've included data collection, developing programs, grant seeking, supporting our partners, and state and local advocacy of improved safety performance measures. Moving on to some new fun tools for everyone. So what we have here is a risk exposure assessment tool. So we wanted to be proactive in this planning process. So we wanted to expand our data and analysis, which is also identified as one of our action areas. So we created, I'm just going to call it the REA for short, which includes a variety of roadway attributes. That includes, if you look at the table, these are the ones that we selected through conversations with our TAC and other members. So the roadway attributes that are being calculated in this REA include our number of through lanes, right turn lanes, left turn lanes, whether it has a bike facility and its width, if it has a median, speed limit, vehicle volume, and then an equity area as well. So the darker the color, the more at risk a bike or pedestrian is on that particular segment of the road. So this is complementary to the high injury network. It just provides a lot more information of what's actually on the ground that is increasing your risk. So mentioned towards the beginning, one of the purposes of the VRU was to consolidate our existing safety project recommendations from all of our agencies and to further prioritize those projects with vulnerable road users in mind. So to get to this process, we started with that creation of the REA. which amongst other things is a visual representation of VRU risk to guide data-driven decision-making, understand safety risk related to infrastructure and the design of a roadway. And it helps us or offers more predictive analysis of where crashes are most likely to occur. The second item was to, of course, consolidate all of our existing plans, their recommendations, and map them. And then third was to take those recommendations from these existing plans and prioritize them with the inclusion of the risk exposure assessment. And the purpose of this process is to guide our agencies, once again, in helping you to better identify and prioritize projects. This also helps us with identifying areas for bundling. As you'll see in just a minute, some locations have upwards of 20 recommendations from 5 different plans in that area. So we can look at them holistically and figure out the best path forward based on those recommendations. Bundling also supports grant opportunities. And being able to show that there is a true need at this location because there's this many things being requested there. It also helps us to look at overlapping project recommendations. And then for MetroPlan specifically, it provides us guidance in our planning to programming nomination process. It helps us with our strategic grants planning with our partners and assists us when we are working in the Rural Transportation Advocacy Council. In reviewing safety-related projects, we consolidated recommendations from 7 plans, which identified 62 distinct projects. We then added in the city's active transportation master plans, priority 1 projects to that as well. So on the right is an example of that consolidation, which is accessible online in our document as well. Essentially what we have here is the location in which a countermeasure is being recommended, the reference document, some of these have more than one document, whom's the agency who's making that recommendation, and then a list of what those recommendations are from each of those documents. So at least it's a quick visual if you need to peek at it real quick, but it also folds into our online mapping tool. So we then integrated the risk exposure assessment tool with those project recommendations. We conducted 2 types of spatial analysis, depending on the type of project. So we just kept them simple: intersections, roadway segments. And so the scoring difference is, the scoring system is a little different between the 2, but it still gets to the same point. The higher the score, the higher the risk. And these are the areas we should focus on. And when you click on those, I'm just going to talk about the intersection. When you click on the intersection, you will see all of the plans that list that intersection. It essentially ties back to that spreadsheet for you. So it's quick and easy. You get what you need. Once again, the darker the color, higher risk areas, taking the sum of that risk score at that intersection. The bigger the circle, the more plans that it's referenced in. So there's a key online. You can check it out if you'd like. We also did the same for segments as well. Sorry, just go back. The right-hand side, once again, looks very, very similar to the high injury network. However, when you zoom in, you can get at a lot more detail instead of looking at the road. This slide, you notice it's this section that's really the problem here. All right, so based on the scoring of including the projects, existing projects with the risk exposure assessment, it was really great to see that these recommendations are often matching what we're hearing from the community members and the areas that they are concerned about. So our top 3 locations in terms of a segment, we'll see East Route 66 again up there, from West Route 66 to Fanning, East Route 66 San Francisco to Country Club, and Milton Road, West Route 66 to McConnell. When we're looking at our top 3 intersections, we all know this one. Milton and Route 66, 4th Street and 7th Street, and then East Route 66 and Ponderosa Parkway. And we double checked the 4th Street and 7th Street number here because it was a little bit of an outlier for us. And while that intersection doesn't particularly have a lot of crashes, the score is calculating all the infrastructure in that area that's raising the risk for people. So if you're like, wait, where'd that one come from? That's why. And then, of course, you know, we're using these resources ourselves. We also encourage our partners and we advocate for them to use these to help improve those areas specifically of high risk. So we have our online tool, once again, can be used for various reasons. We have included a best practices resource within the document as well. This one just gives some policy development, some ideas to move forward, especially with the Safe Streets Master Plan coming. There could be some just some guidance or ideas listed through here. There's also Vision Zero strategy examples for our partners. This one's definitely more policy based. So once again, I imagine these conversations to come up as that other project moves forward. Implementation, the part we all like. All right, so we have a lot of strategies, so we're working through those. So we're first going to continue to seek funding that addresses our safety issues. So we have the 3 main federal grants that support safety in our community, but we also need to, we want to maintain our staffing positions within transportation demand management and safe routes to school. Thank you. It's like the acronyms just got mixed up in my head. Obviously, these 2 positions really support MetroPlan's safety goals moving forward. And these 2 positions actually implement several of the strategies that are listed. We want to integrate those 30 strategies into MetroPlan's unified work program over that 1 to 5 year implementation timeline. This is to hold us accountable for moving these strategies forward and ensuring that we have staff and resources set aside over that 5-year span. And then, of course, to conduct advocacy at all levels of government to prioritize transportation safety. I swear I'm wrapping up here soon. We are doing some immediate actions. So we're developing a process in which to conduct our annual crash review. This will provide up-to-date data, allows us to track our progress towards a reduction in our Vision Zero goals. Of course, data collection is a big component of it. So we are setting the baseline by conducting over 100 bike and ped counts across the region. This is new and robust data for us. Excited to use it in many ways. And why are we counting? Well, it all folds back into that annual crash review, keeps us accountable, helps us meet our goals. So how is this all coming together at the end of the day? Like I said, there's a lot of safety documents out there. We as MetroPlan have a fair amount of our own. So the idea here is, you know, if the vulnerable road users safety action plan is adopted today, it will eventually be amended into our regional transportation safety action plan. Vulnerable road users, while they were included in that original plan, it wasn't as robust as the VRU. So this is adding more context and information. This will then feed into our future regional transportation plan. This will be a component that works in concert with the Safe Streets Master Plan. And that really, for folks that aren't familiar with the regional transportation plan, that is a federally required document for us, typically has a 20 to 25 year horizon that we're looking at. It helps us with our strategic planning, and this gives us the opportunity to really embed transportation safety into our goals at that level as well. So actually, I'm going to skip ahead here. Of course, this is an action item for your consideration today, but before we move to that, I did want to ask the board if there were any questions or comments moving forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great presentation. Do we have any questions, comments from board members?
Yes, I have a question. Hello, this is Jeronimo Vasquez. My question is basically, is this presentation or these links that were shown, are there online links to access this information? Because there's some slides in there that I would like to be able to publish in my newsletter based on pictures, screenshots I took, but I would like to be able to put the links in there so people who want to look for it can go and click on it, especially when they're online looking at the newsletter, they click it and it takes it to the different reports.
Yes. Short answer, yes. But I will send out an updated link. Obviously we need to update the document once it's approved to capture hopefully today's motion. There's also a few little items that I want to clean up on there because some information is old. I want to make sure that our links are up and working to the online mapping tools as well. So I would say give me a week to just get that fully updated. However, the document as it is presented today is online. So at least that's a quick reference if you need it.
Yeah, if I could get that quick reference just so I can keep kind of putting it out there, but I wouldn't look to put anything into a newsletter with a link until next month. So
Okay.
till the new year. So it's really, thinking forward, it would be great to have that link now so we can get what's up there. But I'm really not thinking about like pushing like these reports and stuff in that way or educating the community through my newsletter until January.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, this grant was put out in 2023, was it you said?
Fiscal year 2022. Yes.
Okay, and so then it started in 2024 and you used that grant money for all this?
Correct. And this was all done in-house as well.
Thank you. That was my only question, and it's a lot of data, a lot of information. It's really great. So good presentation. That was a lot.
Question, I guess maybe a question / comment. I'm very surprised at the number of injuries with bike lanes.
Yes, me too.
Speak to that.
I can't speak to it very well. It's unfortunately just based on the data that we receive from ADOT, and it doesn't necessarily give a lot of information on the exact cause for that. However, we have seen in terms of folks who drive not yielding, crossings are certainly up there. And I would imagine right turns as well as part of that. Go ahead, Dave. You have some additions?
Chair. The data that Mindy referenced earlier is video capture data, and it has details on whether the bike was in the lane or the bike was in on the sidewalk or the roadway. And that can help us perhaps dig into that. The other, there's the old joke about the drunk looking around with the traffic light or the street light. Cop asks him what he's doing. He says, "I'm looking for my keys." It's like, well, why you're looking here? Because the light's better here. It's like, why are accidents happening in bike lanes? That's where the bikes are. Is to some of that. It's like, so, but we should be able to dig into this and learn more.
To learn. Great. Any other questions or comments from the board? Are there any comments from the public? And if so, please raise your hand to be recognized.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have some members of the public who want to give comment on this item. So I'll first call on Dapper Dre. I'll start the top. Go ahead.
I'm going to save my seat just because getting up and down a little bit tricky for me. I guess the main thing it was great to see everything. Thank you. That's really cool. The interactive map data is going to be super cool, I think, and dynamic. I would also very interested in the 100 intersections being checked for crossings specifically. Again, I think a major dark spot on all this data is how many people use these intersections, walking approximates, biking approximates, and where those overlap with said crash data. And I think I've heard from several folks on this board that proactive is better than reactive, right? I feel like this data is very reactive. You're only looking at what is captured, right? Where the light is, where the better light is. So getting some data of where the expectation of these things are gonna happen. Where are these people? Why are there so many pedestrians in that certain area that are getting hit? How many crossings are at your super used crosswalks and intersections to, again, be proactive in what gets developed in matching up that data as far as where things have been, showing different incidences, but also, like you were saying, the capture of the circle of projects that are supposed to be used in that area. And then one more overlap of a map of where people use these things. Where are people trying to get to? Where are the connection points of why there are so many pedestrians in a certain area? Like the Milton corridor makes sense that a lot of people are going to the university, and through that corridor, we have the underpass now, which I think is a very valuable asset. And then the 60% of people getting hit, not in intersections, makes a lot of sense, right? Because none of the cars are expecting to see somebody running across the street, but that makes sense on Route 66 because your gaps in where you can actually cross are just so big. Of course, you're gonna try to run it in between. You know, if you can't cross the street from Ponderosa Parkway to Arrowhead, it's like, well, you know, what if I want to get to that one place that I know a shortcut from, so I'm gonna have to run that. So following that data, I think using all this data to really implement into what people gain in the future, I think it's gonna be awesome. So thank you for that, but really looking forward to seeing more information as far as multimodality, where that actually happens to retrofit and reinforce the usement of said multimodality, because that I think automatically works into your CNP better than most new implementation or education for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, we now have Sam Meyer who would like to give comment.
Thank you for that presentation and MetroPlan for all your work on this. My name is Sam Meyer. I'm a resident of Flagstaff. I'm also a vulnerable road user, as is Dre. I don't drive in the city of Flagstaff, and neither does my father. I want to share that my dad is probably one of those crash data points. In 2008, he was struck by a car that failed to yield while he was biking down Cherry Hill, flipped over the hood, broke his femur, was hospitalized, you know, the whole thing. So this work really matters to people in the community. Avoiding crashes and injuries, that's huge. I think unfortunately, many of us know people who have been hurt by a vehicle, whether they're friends, family, other loved ones. So I really want to thank you for all your work on this and emphasize that it does really matter. I agree with what Dre said about the data collection. I'm very excited about that. It's been an issue for a long time to not know beyond the existing crash data that's captured by police officers who respond to a scene where people are almost getting hurt, where crashes are minor and therefore not being reported, and therefore where there are unsafe conditions that might not show up in just straight crash data. So I'm really, really pleased to see the risk exposure assessments and looking at the infrastructure and the ways in which the infrastructure itself is unsafe, and to hear that you're doing more data collection. That's really awesome. And again, I just want to thank you all because it does really, really matter to people in this community. So thank you.
Madam Chair, I don't have any other comments. You can proceed to the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question. I don't know if I heard this at any point or, but with the new technology that is, I don't know if you call it technology, but like with the scooters and people skateboarding, how is that backing into it before creating any kind of data?
I believe it's subjective to how the officer classifies the person. I would imagine, my best guess is if you're on a scooter, they're probably going to put you in the bicycle category. So, if you're on a different mode like a scooter, it is in there. It just isn't specifically specified.
No, I was just, never touched by that. Was a really good question. Any other questions from the board? Okay, well, thank you. This was a great presentation. No, I've been looking forward to this, and I too am excited that we have some good data to look into and keep track of and reference. So thank you.
May I make a comment? Yes.
Yeah, I
Um,
would
I
like
just-
to. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to let you all know that I very much appreciated working on this. I had the opportunity to write the grant and finish this project all the way through. And it is something that's very important to me. I think we all have suffered either a loss or somebody injured in our community. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Member Vasquez, did you have a comment?
Yeah, first off, thank you for the presentation. It's great information, and I'm really excited to educate the community about it. It also stuck out with me about the bicycle accidents, and you think about the current climate we're in and how there's a shift away from those kind of multimodal transportation modes. And the data shows that we have to incorporate those in our future planning. And so I'm really encouraged by having some solid data that we can use when educating the community and educating our legislators when we're talking about these issues, so that we can make sure that we get the proper safety infrastructure that's needed to make sure transportation is safe for all modes of transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'm not seeing any. So can I get a motion to adopt the vulnerable road user safety action plan?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Great job. Moving down to consideration and possible action regarding Safe Streets Master Plan Contract Number 2026-03, Task Order Number 2 with Kittleson and Associates. MetroPlan staff, Kate Morley.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. So this item is to authorize a second task order with Kittleson and Associates. You may recall it was just last month that we entered into a master contract with them and task order 1 to deliver the Safe Streets Master Plan. We are now suggesting that we further the efforts with that plan, essentially still related to the work of the Safe Streets Master Plan, by adding on a project prioritization process. We did not include this in the first task order because this is the add-on by MetroPlan, whereas the Safe Streets Master Plan is a partnership of the city, the county, Mountain Line, who are all contributing to that effort financially and developed a scope of work together. This is something we wanted to add on and would be paying for separately as an organization. So we're tracking as a separate task order, but it is really integrated and related to the overall effort of the Safe Streets Master Plan. You may recall we did talk about this in September when we talked about the carbon reduction program funds. We added in our fiscal year budget at a fairly last minute an obligation of about 225,000-ish dollars for the carbon reduction program. It was something we had intended to use in future years, but because of the change in the administration at the federal level, we're worried that those funds may not exist in future years, and we might not be able to obligate them. They are formula funds to MetroPlan, but if that funding is not given out in a fiscal year, we would not have access to it. So we went ahead and obligated them without a project. This is our proposal, and ADOT has signed off on the use of the funds for this project. The need, as Mandia mentioned, she combed through 7 plans and found about 200 projects, which she started to pull into the Vulnerable Users Project. That's not all the projects in the region. There are over 600 projects in the region, but you have to comb through 15 different plans to find them all. So step 1 is let's get all those projects into one GIS platform where we can see what they are. Then we want to rank them based on the MetroPlan values, which are on your screen. It doesn't mean we always have to rank them this way, but we would have a quick filter to be able to say, what are the priorities based on the values that we have here? And then we could also filter them by funding requirements. So if we wanted a safety grant, we could really pull forward the safety requirements. If we wanted to pursue a bridge grant, that's unlikely, but if we wanted to pursue a bridge grant, that we could filter for the bridge projects, et cetera, but still see our prioritized ranking of projects that are eligible for grants. So it should make our strategic grants planning process very simple. It would also simplify our process for identifying our priorities for ADOT projects on the state highway system, what we're asking ADOT to do. So we would still add a human factor to these, bring these to the TAC and the board to weigh in. We'd have a starting point by which to have those conversations. Additionally, we would like this platform to be available to our partners. So while MetroPlan is paying for this, the thought is that partners could use this resource of all the projects in one region as well. And they could also use the rankings if they so choose to. So for example, this could be used when somebody was doing a pavement preservation project. The team might open up this GIS platform and look and see all the things that have been recommended for this corridor and be able to simply figure out what might be able to be added to that scope of work for a project that's occurring. So really streamlining processes for getting those capital projects done, but also if development were proposing something and there was a traffic impact analysis process, you might be able to pull in projects for that as well and see those happen. So we're hoping that it is valuable to all the partners in the efforts as well. The best example I have from this, and I would say this is a pretty rudimentary example of what we're looking for, is the web portal for the Active Transportation Master Plan, where you can filter through bike and ped projects and see if it was ranked first priority, second priority, third priority, et cetera. And it is a pretty quick glance. So this would be integrating all those projects in this current platform into an updated platform, along with all the other projects that we've identified. Not just the active transportation plan ones. Again, this relates back to the Safe Streets Master Plan, which is going to be a GIS platform in the end that will identify additional projects. And so it will all come together in the end as one large platform that has a lot of capabilities for the partners. And with that, there is a recommendation for action to approve this item today, and we're happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the board? Not seeing any. Are there any comments from the public?
There are no requests to give comment at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So not seeing any questions or comments, may I have a motion to authorize the executive director to execute Safe Streets Master Plan and adopt the vulnerable road user safety action plan? That's what's on here.
Sorry.
So moved.
What?
Hold on. That's what's listed here for me to say. Okay, sorry.
Apologies for that, Chair.
Let me start over. Geronimo, hold on
I'll
one
make the
second.
motion to whatever the chair reads right now.
All right, can I get a motion to recommend
Madam Chair, if I may, it would be a motion to authorize the executive director to execute the Safe Streets Master Plan contract number 2026-03 task order 2 with Kittleson and Associates in the amount of $202,770.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I have a motion by Member Vasquez, and do I have a second? And a second by Member Peschlakai. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. We are down to discussion items. An update on legislative items from Kate Warren.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. So in October of this year, we adopted a legislative agenda, and then we provide an update every couple months on how that agenda is going. So that is what this topic is. We have both state and federal items, and I will start with our state priorities. The first priority is to seek long-term funding solutions to the gas tax, essentially. So gas tax hasn't been raised in many years, and the state is feeling the impacts of that when it comes to infrastructure. So what are we working on here? We are working on trying to put together the data that would be needed to move a statewide funding revenue solution forward. And the first step in that is identifying what are all the potential funding sources that we could be looking at. Sales tax, gas tax, EV taxes, tire taxes. People have a lot of ideas on this. We are working on an a la carte revenue, we're calling it the a la carte revenue menu, and pulling that together for partners. We are also working with the RTAC, the Rural Transportation Advocacy Council, on a survey about what their role should be in leading this. So is it RTAC's job to be leading this on behalf of Arizona? Is there a different entity? Are they just a stakeholder at the table? This will help us because really this is a full-time job for somebody, right? To move a statewide tax forward, somebody has to be managing this as a project manager, and there's probably consultants involved. There's a lot of money involved. So is RTAC the place to do that, or do we need to create or find a different coalition for that is the question. So we're trying to put together the structure that makes sense to move a statewide funding solution forward. And then third, we are working to build a coalition, having conversations with the with the Association of Engineers, the Contractors Association, other MPOs and COGs around the state, such as MAG and PAG, so Greater Phoenix, Greater Tucson, Association of Governments. So we're really excited. This is a multi-year process. If we were to move as quickly as possible, the fastest anything would happen would be to put something on the ballot in 2028, right? Like by the time we put all this together, run a campaign, it has to be an even year to have a statewide vote on something. It's likely that we're looking at a longer time frame than that, but we are playing a long game here, and we are trying to put those pieces together to at least have the conversations about whether or not we want to put something on the ballot moving forward. It is a new, whatever it is a revenue solution, so the state would require that there is a statewide vote on it, and it is not just a majority vote, it is a 60%, I believe, vote to pass. The second one here is to educate on the benefits of maintaining and fully funding the Arizona Smart Fund. As we know, this region has been very successful with this state's matching fund program. We have leveraged $14 million out of the Smart Fund into $252 million worth of projects. This fund is almost out of money. We have more projects that we want to apply for, more grants that we want to be matching. So we're really asking the legislature to use one-time funding to put more money back in that pot. This is very well received. Members of the legislature really like this program because they see that return on investment. We do have Representative Nguyen is requesting $15 million in the state budget. It's not quite our $35 million ask, but we are happy to take the $15 million if we can get it. This will not be run as a standalone bill. There's some reasons for that. You can avoid some committee hearings, et cetera, if you don't run a bill and you just try to get it in the budget. So that is our path forward on that. And we're very grateful to Representative Nguyen for supporting this effort through the budget process in the next cycle.
Okay, Member Vasquez has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say about the RTAC, please, we need your input on the RTAC survey to know kind of where to go with that, because RTAC has really positioned itself to be in the middle of that and the forefront of that conversation. And in my opinion, I think that's where it should be. But I think, and as the RTAC representative who's been involved in that and advocating for it, but we really need to hear from all of you to know really how we should move forward as MetroPlan supporting or not supporting these efforts. There is a unique opportunity right now where there is some energy around. It will take time and it is a long game strategy. I think it would be a mistake to create something new and not have RTAC in the middle of that. But that's just my 2 cents. So I wanted to mention that. And then on the smart fund, you know we're constantly advocating to renew that fund, because that's been a lifeblood for our state. You know, all you got to do is look at how much match funds federally have been brought to Arizona because of that smart fund. So I just wanted to throw that in there and thank all of you for your advocacy and work on this, and just know that you know, at least while I'm RTAC representative, I'll be pushing hard for our priorities on behalf of all of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next state priority is to seek funding for 2 projects that we did prioritize that are advanced last year, and that is US 180 and West Route 66. We have created 2 different strategies to move these forward. The first one is to have US 180 project funded through the capital planning process at ADOT. And so we've been educating state board members on the need for that project and making public comment. Chair Sweet did make comment at the last board meeting, and I'll be reaching out for someone to make comment at the next one. The slogan has come up of do a 180 on US 180 from not funding it to funding it. And it seems to be sticking. People remember, so that's a good thing. So if you're brave enough when you're making your comment, you can add in the do a 180 on US 180 there to the state board. And then West Route 66, we are pursuing an appropriation from the state. It's both in the RTAC bill, and we have Senator Rogers introducing a $3 million bill. That is a scalable project. That would not fund the whole thing. There are funds from the city as well, and we can piecemeal portions of that project together until we get it done. And we are working currently on scheduling trips to the Capitol this spring to talk about West Route 66 and the Smart Fund in particular. And then our 4th state funding one is educate on the need for funding ADOT to ensure project delivery and local needs can be met. And this is really a rural issue. ADOT actually does a lot of project management across the state for rural jurisdictions. They also help us get grant money out the door and do have a lot of support outside of just maintaining the state highway system. The legislature actually controls ADOT's ability to staff itself and the ability to provide raises for staff. And so we don't have a specific ask here, but we are just saying to the legislature, the inability for ADOT to attract and retain staff does have an impact across Arizona. And we would like you to provide them some resources to address those issues. On the federal side, our number 1 item here is reauthorization is happening. This is reauthorization of surface transportation funding. We have 4 priorities, which is to maintain the funding levels and let local jurisdictions figure out how to use that money for its best use. So don't tighten up the rules so much that we can't spend it the way we need to spend it. We want to ensure the equitable distribution of funding. This is the population formulas have not been updated in many years. Arizona has been a high growth state, and we are missing out on money because they have not updated the formulas for population. We do want to preserve the discretionary grant programs. This is a major issue of discussion, is just giving out the money to states for formula. or allowing all these discretionary grants to remain. We have been very successful with the discretionary grants, so we want to keep those. The other piece here is that when we move to population, the formula, we only get, you know, $500,000, $1 million in a good program. We can't build a project for $1 million. We need to be able to access those $15, $20 million pots of money that we've been so successful for to actually get a project completed. And then finally, the last one's related to Mountain Line. This is a merit-based program for transit systems. Mountain Line performs very highly, and so increasing the funds in the merit-based program is beneficial to Mountain Line. And they would get more formula funds if we were to be able to increase that set aside for merit programs. There are also a variety of secondary asks there, which are important, but not the key priorities that we identified above. We did identify those 4 priorities in collaboration with Mountain Line City and county staff. Next slide. Oh, I'm in charge of the slide. Like, okay, Tammy. Okay, so the other piece of our federal agenda is really just to continue to be aggressive about getting those grants. We have written some support letters and provided grant writing support on a number of projects. The bus stop improvements grant was just awarded, so we're very excited about that. That's $3.4 million for Mountain Line to upgrade its bus stops. And the Big Phil Lake application is being submitted in the next 2 months, and the Belmont TI has been submitted already. So we're still really trying to work hard to support those grant applications that are occurring. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions. This is just an update. There's no action associated with it.
Thank you, Kate. Do we have any questions or comments?
I have a question. Madam Chair, I have a question. On that last slide, the letters for Belmont, Big Phil Lake, are those to have bus stops put there?
Sorry, my presentation was a little confusing.
Okay.
These are 3 different grants that have been applied for. The Belmont TI is to improve the interchange at Belmont on I-40. So out at Belmont, a new interchange, it backs up with the truck stop there. They're looking for some secondary egress. It is a very expensive project, so actually a very difficult project to fund just due to the value of, or the construction cost of that project. The Big Phil Lake project is actually a rail project. It is on the east side of town in the country club area. It would resolve some culvert issues over there and set the stage for the 3rd rail to come through and really open up the drainage issues that are occurring with the culverts are creating some of the flooding that we see on that side of town, or when it rains a lot. So it would actually open up some land for development as well and have a great impact there. So the city is making that application and we're working with them on that. The bus stops are a totally separate 3rd one. That one has been awarded to Mountain Line already.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Questions or comments?
Madam Chair, no comments were received prior to the meeting, and I see no hands raised for comment on this item.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving down to Safe Streets Master Plan Kickoff Meeting Update. And Dave Haskell, he is the planning manager.
Very brief. We just had this meeting yesterday. It was the project management team met. And went very well. Pleased to announce for the project management team, we've added Tiffany Antall from the city to join with Chris Fair, who's on the line here, as well as Mandy and myself. So we think we have a real strong team that's going to represent multiple viewpoints and really be able to coordinate and network across all of the agencies and departments. The meeting was really pretty perfunctory. How are we going to communicate? What authorizations we're going to give? So I don't think I need to go into this much more other than we're really excited that the ball is rolling and looking forward to updating you as we go. So any questions on that?
Didn't all the updates occur?
So I think we're gonna try to put out regular memos, if you will, as briefings, especially when we hit milestones that require some input, set you guys up in terms of, anticipating when they're coming, so you're prepared at that time. And then we're also in the process of setting up those schedules. But expect the master plan to be a standing item on the board agenda for a long time.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Any public comment? Not seeing any. Okay, thank you, and don't go anywhere.
Yep.
Strong Towns presentation briefing.
Yeah. So this is somewhat related to the master plan, in that there's a philosophy behind Strong Towns, and they were invited to speak to the community with some of the transit to code grant monies, really to kind of set the stage for how the region might develop. Strong Towns is a nonprofit founded by an engineer / planner, Charles Maroon, I think is the name, who became frustrated in the early mid 2000s, working with various cities and really not seeing the fiscal responsibility or fiscal health that he thought should be there. They have about 5,700 members nationwide, and there's a chapter recently formed here in Flagstaff. You can see here on the screen from their website, they tell stories and develop resources. They really want to develop that financially strong and resilient communities and be a really strengthened cities in terms of their role. And they believe very strongly, you can see their mission and what they do. They want that to be the default way that cities approach planning. So what is their approach? I'm going to kind of focus on that incremental aspect. They use this phrase of small bets, small risks, looking at how cities have historically developed. You see the historic pictures of Flagstaff with the tents and then the wooden shacks and then the larger buildings. And these are, as value is added, these bets become less risky as they grow. But they take place within both a physical and a regulatory setting. And so from a physical setting, they really promote the grid as a place to create form, guide where those investments take place, where they really frown, if you will, on what they call the suburban experiment. We've heard phrases like dead worm, loops and lollipops to describe the road network. And it's very hard to concentrate investments in those areas. So they like the grid, and then they like to see barriers removed so that these small bets can take place. So things like parking requirements and other things that might increase the amount of investment required, increasing the risk and putting a damper on that investment. So they came and spoke to us Thursday and Friday, the 13th and the 14th, about 70 people at a public event sponsored in partnership with FQ, Friends of Flagstaff's Future, and about 40 people Friday morning, which was by invite and was staff, some developers, elected officials. I think, Madam Chair, you were there both events, and then I think Supervisor Vasquez and Supervisor Begay were there Friday morning. I believe as well.
Yeah,
So
that's
Mr. Erfurt,
accurate. For us, I was just gonna say, for us, we happen to have our Board of Supervisors board retreat the day of the evening of the other event, and that's why we had to miss it. But we attended the day event.
yeah, thank you. So Mr. Erfurt is the Chief Technical Advisor. He's an architect by training, but worked in both the public and private sector in terms of development review. So what did we hear? We heard a lot of good things. I think a lot of things that we as a region are in sync with, a lot of things that we can support, a lot of things that we can work on through the master plan to improve, starting with transportation. I'll bring this up as an example. He talked about transforming grids. 4th Street is a place where there's opportunities. Community College is going to make a major investment along 4th Street. Are there opportunities there to look at this philosophy and think about how we might do that? We've also, in past regional transportation plans through MetroPlan, supported those kind of grid expansion possibilities. Focus on important sensitivities. Things here like housing, climate action. And I think we do a good job in terms of that public engagement. You've heard in Dia's presentation in terms of the type of engagement that we do. Safety over other criteria. Again, the VRU, I think, is an emphasis on that. Safety master plan. It's what we're looking at. We're looking at this complete street guidelines. So looking at aligning those with transects is there. The graphic representation really was, that kind of excited me. Pictures speak a lot. And I think there's a good way to start really showing what we want, demonstrating what we want. You can see some of the other things there that I think we're on board with, supportive of, see happening here. And he actually acknowledged that, compared to many of the communities he works with and on many of these matters, Flagstaff and the region is a bit ahead of the curve. Oh, we have a question, Madam Chair.
Attend these meetings for government around surgery. Can you tell me a little bit more about the city's long-term stability to mitigate developers' risk?
Madam Chair.
Large level, you're-
Sure, I'll give an example. So from the discussion, if I can remember it. So in many times, the city will require a bond upfront or investments to be in the ground early on. Well, the city has this kind of a long-term stability. They could hold off on that requirement, lowering the developer's risk. Because it's really, if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, also great as far as the city is concerned, until the developer actually has some investments happening that they can get a return, and then the city can increase those requirements.
Yes.
I don't know that he gave a precise example, but I think I could think any subdivision where it's like, hey, you have to build out the entire road network before you can start issuing building permits. And so that's a heavy expense, putting a lot of risk to the developer. And I think the city does some of this in terms of some of the phasing they allow to help reduce that, but I think they can take it further is what I took away from the presentation. There was also some innovative things that might take some legislative work, like tax increment financing dedicated towards housing that could help lower a developer's risk by looking at those future tax revenues. So I think there were some creative financial vehicles that could be employed, and that because the city is more stable and has that long-term position, could transfer some of that stability to lowering the developer's risk and hopefully encouraging more of the housing development goals that we have there. So there were a couple of items where it's like, okay, we have some questions. This one kind of made my heart seize briefly. Basically, don't model, it's always wrong. And it's hard to argue with this. It's, whenever you make a projection, do you get it right? No, but I think we do a good job of getting it close, giving us some good information. So why don't they like modeling? And again, traffic's dynamic, can't disagree with that. People find other ways. If there's congestion, especially locals find another route. If you look at commute statistics across the nation, they haven't changed in terms of the time of a commute very much over decades because people move, businesses relocate. And so how do you really predict all of that? It's difficult. But he also said it's useful in grant applications, and it has been very useful in grant applications. A lot of it's required, but it's good. But then he also says, but you shouldn't be pursuing federal funds because you should be fiscally sound on your own. Again, hard to argue with some of those points. Here in italics at the bottom, a lot of the issues he's raised with modeling, we have addressed over the years. And one of, I think, an important one is how do we actually use the results of the model? I think if you look at the last two transportation taxes, are we funding importantly wider road? Occasionally, mostly they've been new connections, which was something they promoted. Another point they made was no stroads. So the stroad is kind of the middle section there where you have a road, and their parlance is one that would be like Lake Mary coming into a city, 2 lanes, keep it simple, very little access to it. Then when you get into a city, now you have city streets with a much higher level of access. And they prefer this 2-lane grid, low speeds, so safer for all modes, and moves very well. But one of the questions we've been asking ourselves for decades is how do you get there? How do you get to this tight grid when we have a railroad and an interstate and mountains and washes and existing development? So at the end of the day, we're seeking to understand more about strong towns and their positions. I have an email out to several key staff who attended saying, what do you agree with? What don't you agree with? Where do you think we can build on these things? We are going to engage with the local chapter, make sure they're on our stakeholders list for the master plan. And then I would, look forward to talking with Mr. Erfurt, who was very generous in saying, hey, I love this stuff. Give me a call. We'll talk. So we'll do that. Want to keep an open mind. And I think this idea of strategies for the long term really reflects back to that original slide, their position on incrementalism. Cities, the city's been around for over 100 years. The city, God willing, is going to be around for another 100 years. And so this, I think all of us, maybe due to our own mortality, have this sense of urgency. We have to get this done. Well, we're in the long run. And so can we set things up for that success in the long run? And what are some of those strategies that are going to work for us? So my question to the board, Madam Chair, especially for those who attended, is, is this what we learned as a community, what we learned as invitees to that session? Is this something we're likely to have held up to us during the master plan process? Well, Strongtown said, and how prepared should we be to answer those questions? If it's kind of like, yeah, it's basic information. It's good. Don't worry about it. Deal with it when it happens. Kind of lower the effort here. But if you have a sense based on what you heard or what you talked with people about that, no, it's kind of here to stay in terms of, kind of embedded in the community and that we're going to have to deal with it, then, I'd like to, again, kind of keep that open mind, grow professionally in engaging with it, and make sure we're prepared so that we build trust through the process as opposed to, an adversarial, well, we don't agree. I'd rather not say that. I would rather say yes and. So, Madam Chair.
Well, was there both events, and I've been following Strong Towns since I got elected 5 years ago. If they have a great website and social media, so I would recommend following them on social media. I felt that the community really valued the two events. There was a lot of great discussion, a lot of good questions, and I believe that we need more of that. And I think Strong Towns was an asset. And I think that it is here to kind of stay. I feel that we have a chapter here now in Flagstaff, and it would be helpful to engage them and keep the conversation going.
Excellent.
Yep. Can I say something?
Please.
All right, thank you. Based on what I attended, like I had not followed them, so a lot of the stuff that they talked about was new for me, and there were some interesting points, but I did struggle in putting it all together right out the gate. I had to kind of have debrief sessions with folks to kind of understand some of the things that they were talking about. Even your presentation right now about their presentation still raised some questions for me in terms of still not completely clear. And so what I was thinking as listening to the feedback and results based on what you're saying, Miranda, and based on just the overall feedback is, if this is something that we as MetroPlan are interested in, we should have those conversations more. And if they have a chapter, we should have them come present to us more often in smaller chunks on specific things so that we can't, those things that we as a group determine that we can address, we can engage them and the rest of the community on those topics moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. And we'll continue our dialogue with them and both at the kind of the national and local level. It does seem like there's a lot of tools that they have, and we have a local chapter who's willing to maybe do some legwork for us. And if we can bring them into the process, I think it'd be good for all of us. So that's all I have. If there's no more questions.
Again, thank you for being there and helping host those two events. I really did think it was fantastic, and to have so many community members there in the discussion, very engaged. I thought it was great. So at this point, I'm not seeing any questions or comments from the board, and I'm wondering if we have any from the public, either in the room or online.
Madam Chair, I did not receive any comments ahead of this meeting. However, we do have a hand raised, so I'll recognize Dapper Dre.
Thank you folks for the presentation and reminder on this. Yeah, I think it was a huge success of people being there. I mean, I come to a lot of meetings, you guys see me. I come to a lot of things that are outside of just city things, and to have that many people in the room at Trinity Heights was impressive. Because we all know sometimes it's crickets for a lot of these bigger decisions. I think Strong Towns as a framework is a good thing. If you folks haven't listened to the audio book or read the book, I think it's valuable just for kind of general expanse of what we value in communities and how we build those. And I think the big thing that is brought up is that incrementalism, those small tries and trying to get the data from those small tries. And not only doing them once, but doing them over and over again. And then also presenting that to the community in either the form of Strong Towns or showing people that they might not inherently understand why they like something, but that it falls under the rubric that is community building Instead of seeing a street shut down as an inconvenience, remind people that we all celebrate the 4th of July parade and New Year's Eve. And what are those? Those are street closures. Those are the first thing. What do we value every Sunday during the prime time of weather? A huge parking lot getting shut down and a street getting shut down for the farmer's market. And people value that. And it's incremental. And trying to get a little bit more data collection from some of these incremental street closures, like they were just doing bus or road work down where the buses usually go in front of us. Was there data being taken as far as delays in service or complaints from people who couldn't access the bus? Can we try more where, I don't know, you might shut down Beaver Street for maintenance, but can you run data on how people react to that to see if allowing for streets to be strategically closed help with some of the community building instead of always thinking in car-centric terms that allow for messaging to cars saying, oh, we beg you 1,000 pardons. Instead, we're trying to invite people to say, actually, this is your street, you pay for it. Let's use it when it strategically makes sense. And I think Strong Towns has a good strategic overview of why and how we do things and not just caught up in more the bureaucracy of why and how we do things, but what people actually value and go off of that instead of sometimes getting lost in the sauce with planning and zoning and what's legal or what's not. Sometimes, again, those incremental tries of what we can do to hopefully build up what we want to see, as induced demand works both ways. If you induce demand for walking and riding bikes, that's the same as doing it for cars. Thank you.
No other comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, a handful of updates here today. I did mention that member or Chair Sweet did make comment at the state board on US 180. We also got the good news that the lighting fixture replacement has been approved by ADOT, even though it was over budget. So that shows a good investment, and we'll see some of those dark sky fixtures going up here soon. Succession planning for the regional model. You just heard Dave almost had a heart attack when they said don't model. And while hopefully Dave doesn't have a heart attack, Dave will be retiring soon. And he is in 16 months. And he is the region's modeler and has that skill set. And it is unique in this region. So we're starting to talk about what happens when Dave does retire. Let's see, we are actively planning for the 2026 Transportation Policy Summit at High Country Conference Center. This is an event that usually has about 400 people in attendance. Many electeds attend this. The state we usually get like 20 members of the state legislature there. It's a great time to talk about transportation funding. We're excited to host, grateful to the city for having conference support, and are, well underway on that. It will be here before we know it. And then we did have an ADOT transportation visioning listening tour in the region. ADOT came and hosted, I think, 4 meetings in the region with different groups to talk about what is your vision for transportation in the state. There was a community group that was held. They talked to transportation experts. They had an elected officials invite as well. I think it went well. I think they got a lot of a variety of feedback of what that vision looks like, from dark skies to multimodal and many other things in between. That is my only happening slide today. I'm surprised I don't have more to say, but I guess we've had some holidays in between, and that is it until, yeah.
Can you remind me of when the Transportation Policy Summit? What is the date of that?
That is in October of 2026, I believe. Thank you, 14th to the 16th. Yeah, it's a ways away, but we've got the conference center booked. We were working through the agenda, lots of logistics involved in that. It is a big undertaking. And I think what's interesting about it is it just rotates between COGS and MPOs every year, whereas most summits have, you know, an organization that's behind it. ASTA, the Transit Association, is behind it. The State Planning Association is behind it, and they have dedicated staff that are throwing these conferences every year, and they generate money for their organization by doing so. This event has grown from a 40-person event to this 400-person event. It was just passed around between COG and MPOs. It still is. There's a, you know, you get whatever money the last person had left over to start with, and there is no budgetary goals. There's a lot of interesting components of this summit. The COG and MPO directors have actually been talking about scaling it way back after the Flagstaff conference. We've rotated through everyone. When you talk to everyone, there's not a lot of enthusiasm to do it again because it is so much work. I think Sierra Vista just hosted, I think they were estimating in like the 800 hours of staff time to throw the conference on top of their normal workloads. I think we'll have it a little bit easier because we have high country. Sierra Vista didn't have a conference center like that. And we are co-hosting with NACOG, so more staff are involved. You know, but it really grew from this 40-person event where people talked about funding, leadership at the state talked about funding, to this much larger event where there's educational sessions happening. So we're trying to right size it and make sure that the right attendees are present. But I think we'll see big changes after Flagstaff occurs.
Any questions or comments for Kate? Not seeing any.
I just wanted to comment on the ADOT transportation vision opportunity. Was super awesome. It was really great to have the ear of ADOT because that's probably one of the hardest things to get in general. And it was nice to see not only their proactiveness, but MetroPlan and the city's proactiveness to talk about that. I think we're in a unique place where Route 66 and Milton are ADOT purview, and you hear so much from the general public in commentary and critique of our roads, and oftentimes those are ADOT thoroughfares. So educating the public more into the realm of knowing what can be addressed by the city and what needs to be addressed by ADOT, I think helps to quell some of the more outspoken or frustrations on the realm of some of the general public and how they interact with roadways and their expectations. If more people are educated on how roads work, it might give some grace not only to all multimodality, but also give a little bit more perspective on patience. You know, your 5 seconds of getting somewhere faster, making my life actually continue is more important than necessarily solving traffic, which I think is what the general public often thinks. This is a traffic problem. This is something that needs to be solved when it can't be. It's just a force into its own. It's a situation and it's a dynamic. And the more people understand that, the less it is a black and white discussion and more of a, okay, how do we make this as best we can? Because the only way you're gonna free up traffic is getting multimodal, and the general public needs to start understanding that more and more, so they understand why certain decisions get made on a broader level for safety. Thanks.
We are down to items from the board. Board members may make general announcements, raise items of concern, or report on current topics of interest to the board. Items are not on the agenda, so discussion is limited and action not allowed. Do we have any board members that have a report?
I would like to make an announcement, and it's not directly transportation, but I think it's applicable, and that you just putting it out there to kind of get the word out. Next Wednesday from 3 to 5 at NASET, they will be having a Dragon Bravo long-term recovery plan listening session. And so it's an opportunity for those businesses in Flagstaff who have been impacted by the Dragon Bravo fire, in particular, the dip in tourism at certain points in the year. This is an opportunity to come tell your story. So if you could please spread the word. There are going to be several throughout Coconino County, but the Flagstaff one is Wednesday. I believe that's December 10th from 3 to 5 at NASET. And so please invite any and all community members or local businesses that you think have been impacted and could potentially benefit from, one, telling their story, but two, learning about the resources that are part of that recovery plan for our local community. So please share that information if you could. And the flyer should be on the county website. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to let you know that the next state transportation report will be in Queen Creek on the 19th. That's right. And then also, about a month ago, there was the Historic and Geographic Names Board for the state formally named the bridge in Cameron as Navajo Code Talker Jimmy Preston Memorial Bridge. And that was done through an application by Representative Peshkai. And so that went and was approved about a month and a half ago. So just an FYI, and yeah, and ADOT will be working on creating the signage, and then we'll let everybody know once they set a date for putting up the sign and having, I don't know exactly what will occur, but there'll be some type of ceremony by ADOT with the Cameron community. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have anything. So our next scheduled meeting is January 8th, 2026. Can't believe that's coming up. And that will be here in this room, 1 to 3 p.m. And at that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. It's very